season.
OWS fam, the nation, my dudes and dudettes. We are back with another industry experts, this time talking to somebody that I had the distinct privilege to work with last year at a place that we shall not be named. No, I'm just kidding. At Third Team, you know him as Jordan Vanek. Mr. Jordan Vanek, how we doing today, my dude?
We're doing good. It's hot down here in South Florida. I know
Oh, stop it.
That limits the.
Your heat is so cute.
I have to bring it up every time I see you, Hilow, because it wasn't the fact that they exploded. It was the fact that the Dolphins scored 70 in the week where you're like, it might be too hot for their players to score. I was just looking at you like, did you just say that? So I'm glad the temperature narrative will no longer be with you, unless it's stupid cold. Cold, I completely agree. Hot, they got the shade. They'll be okay. The Dolphins built that stadium to put the away team in the hotness, not the home one.
Yes. Also, I'm in Arizona, and it's like been 115 it's literally been Satan's butthole for the past like 6 weeks already. So, but dude, we last talked. We used to do this stuff every week. We used to chat twice a week. It was awesome. I haven't talked to you in a minute, buddy. What have you been up to?
Yeah, no, I been grinding the college football streets. I know that Underdog released that contest, and I felt like I had an edge when it first started. And based on the way ADP has gone, I feel like I nailed it because a lot of the guys have, changed way higher. Like Jalen Milroe was going in the second to begin the contest. Now he's going third overall, and I was getting him. And there was another player with a 285 ADP when the contest began. His ADP is now 17, I think, because it was just, I don't know what happened there, but I've been doing college football work over at Roto Grinders. You can find all my college football DFS work there. And then for the NFL DFS this upcoming season, I joined Gridiron Ratings with Jeff DiMatteo because good buddy of mine, and it gives me a chance to just control my own work. So you'll see, I think 3 pieces a week is what I'm planning for NFL. And for college football, you'll see my main slate piece. You'll see me over on the Roto Grinder streets giving advice and hopefully taking down some tournaments this year.
Beautiful. Pulled up your Twitter. There's his info at Jordan Vanek DFS. Go give Jordan a follow if you do not already. Dude, you are, and we used to joke about this a lot, but I mean, you're one of the best wide receiver whisperers I know. So having you on the show today, we're going to focus on the wide receiver position. There have been obviously a ton of offseason moves. We've had a ton of defensive coordinator changes this year, which we're not going to dive too much into today. But the first thing I want to talk about is Shane Waldron in Chicago. We just got a season where we were extremely frustrated with JSN's usage in Seattle. Are you kind of expecting the same thing this year with Rome Odunze? Are you worried at all, or do you think we're going to see a little bit more 11 personnel out in Chicago?
So I'm not worried about Rome Odunze, the prospect. I had him as a highly graded receiver. I thought he was on the same field as Malik Neighbors, with Marvin Harrison being a little bit higher. Yeah. But as far as his impact in year one in the NFL, he to me feels like almost like a late season like running back, the way that we kind of go about those things, like a Jonathan Brooks in your best ball league, where you're not expecting Jonathan Brooks to give you a lot of contribution early on, but then that ending stretch, he kind of gets on the field and starts producing. With Rome Odunze, 1, I think he's a better prospect than JSN. 2, I think he's better suited to actually play outside, which gives him an opportunity to get on the field, because Keenan Allen you want in the slot, DJ Moore you want in the slot. The main concern, though, is how good is the offense line of the Chicago Bears? And Shane Waldron has no problem just going 12 personnel and using those tight ends as blockers. Like we saw that in the preseason with Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet, who were splitting work. That's one person I could not understand his ADP whatsoever with Cole Kmet, and was able to avoid it. But as far as Shane Waldron in Chicago, I don't view this one as an upgrade over Luke Getsy. I think that Caleb Williams is an upgrade over what they've had forever, and that's going to be the difference in the offense being historically great for the Chicago Bears. But as far as Rome Odunze, like I haven't been able to buy him at the ADP that he's gone unless I've gotten Caleb and I missed out on Keenan and DJ Moore.
Are you concerned in the same vein? I guess we've had one preseason game, and we saw Keenan Allen not leave the field with the ones. Does that bring on some more concern? Or are you expecting kind of as we get later on in the season, we might see Odunze take over some more 12 and 21 personnel snaps?
Yeah, that's kind of where my head's at. Also, Keenan Allen, historically, he's had a lot of those muscle tissue injuries. I'm not predicting an
Yeah.
injury. It's just something that has followed Keenan Allen throughout his entire career. And again, once Rome Odunze actually gets on the field, like he's going to produce, and it's just a matter of time, matter of when, not like how or how soon or whatever. I would say that Keenan Allen, though, I wouldn't expect him to have the full-time role in the offense. I would expect DJ Moore to have that type of role. Just one preseason game, 2 drives. Like, it's easy to get Keenan Allen comfortable, get him, Caleb Williams comfortable just throwing easy routes to Keenan. And then the one third down play that he had to DJ Moore brought my eyes, like, lit my eyes up, like, oh, okay. Like, Caleb, you have that arm. You know you have it. And you're not afraid to throw it against the defense that the Bills are a hard defense to throw against. They just love 2-eye shells, and that was a 2-eye shell coverage. It was third down and long. Like, that's not a throw a normal quarterback can make.
That was, I mean, excuse the lazy comp, but that was extremely Patrick Mahomes-esque. Seeing him roll out to the right and throw that dart like across his body motion, like 25 yards downfield. That was interesting. So that was very cool. Switching gears here, dude, we have one of those mini offensive coordinator changes that we just alluded to. We have Kellen Moore coming to Philadelphia, and one of the staples of a Kellen Moore offense has been pre-snap motion. What do you make of that now with the weapons that they have in Philly?
It's everything they've been missing. Like, I have no idea why they got away from it. I have no idea why they decided to just play a stationary type of football. And towards the end of the year, it killed them. Like, teams caught on to what route concepts they wanted to attack in the down and distance, and there were a lot of tells with everything going on. With Kellen Moore, it's not going to be that. I think this is a big boost to Devonta Smith. Obviously, AJ Brown will get his no matter what kind of thing, but Devonta Smith, like, he's a chess piece that if you show man coverage and Kellen Moore can motion and find out that there is man coverage, he's going to be the killer against that type of role or defense. And Jalen Hurts is just a matter of, can you throw with timing? Can you throw somebody open? Not throw to somebody when they're open, but can you throw them open? Those are two things that Jalen Hurts, to me as a passer, not struggles with, but isn't above average at those types of things. And that's why Devonta Smith isn't looked at as one of the top tier wide receivers in the NFL. Because from a talent perspective, I'll say it, I'm not really sure he's that much different than a CeeDee Lamb. It's just a matter of the opportunity he has in front of him, the quarterback throwing to him. And just like we saw with AJ Brown versus when he was in Tennessee versus now when he's in Philly, it's like, oh, wow, you put him in a different offense. And all of a sudden he's like a 1,400-yard receiver year in, year out.
Yeah. So do you have big high hopes for Devonta Smith this season?
Yeah, I have high hope for both him and AJ Brown. There's no other pass catcher that should. Well, Goddard will get a lot of the touchdowns. That's one thing in a Kellen Moore offense. The red zone targets to tight ends throughout his entire. Like Donald Parham had 7 last year. Gerald Everett had 7 with the Chargers. I think Stone Smart had 3. I remember posting quite a bit ago about how tight ends just get red zone targets in this offense. And with Saquon, with the tush push, like it makes a lot of sense that Dallas Goedert will get the opportunity near the red zone and kind of be like, for me, he's finally getting drafted where he should have always been drafted. Like he's no longer going tight end 5 to 7. Yeah. He's going as tight end 10 to 13. And it's like, he's a perfect pairing option with Jalen Hurts, especially if you miss out on some of the elite tight ends in the league.
I love that call, man. I guess we won't dive too far into it, but do you expect the tush push to kind of be a thing again this year?
Yes, I don't expect them to go away from. Like Hurts just squats 700 pounds. I know that they have Saquon, but now you have Saquon pushing Jalen Hurts. It's a cheat code, and there's zero reason Philly shouldn't run it. It's up to teams to find Vita Vea and just pull him from the Buccaneers every week when they play him.
That's a lot of quad, dude. That is a lot of quad.
Hey, Vita Vea stopped it. I don't know how he did it, but that big Samoan just made it go.
That is a lot of quad pushing right there.
Oh
All
yeah.
right, man. Let's shift gears again. We're going to continue kind of our lap around the league, talking about new stuff going on. We have Luke Getsy in Las Vegas with the Raiders. Talk to me a little bit quickly about kind of what you expect to see from Getsy in Las Vegas.
So the quarterback play concerns me. Luke Getsy as a play caller doesn't. And the reason he doesn't is I've watched so much Justin Fields this offseason,
Yeah.
and there were people open. Like the offensive line couldn't block very well. Like there's a lot of bad in Chicago that wasn't on Getsy himself. Obviously, they had a parting of ways, and Shane Waldron ended up taking over. But Luke Getsy found a job immediately after, which is surprising for someone that is looked at as a bad play caller. But the Bears had a good run game. They knew how to game plan against teams. And for me, Luke Getsy, they're limited at the quarterback position, but they're not limited in the talent that they have. The way they use Brock Bowers, the way that he looked in this offense, like I think he's going to be one of the best rookie tight ends we've seen. I think that production-wise will actually follow with him. I know he's competing with Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, but I think teams are gonna put the linebacker on Brock Bowers, and he also will get carries. Like I think he's more of the running back too than Alexander Madison is, and that's something that I think we see once the season gets going. Like I think the dude's going to get goal line carries. Like there's just no reason not to. There's no reason not to give him the jet sweep just like it was Georgia. And I think Getsy as a play caller understands that, and the way that he used Browers in the first game, I expect him to continue getting a bigger role with this offense. And again, as far as the Raiders, I don't think this is a top offense. I think this is like quarterback play is going to limit how good this offense can be. But they don't lack talent. And we did see this team go and beat Kansas City in Kansas City. Yes, the defense made some plays, but Zamir White ran for like 150. Like, if there's an opportunity for Antonio Pierce to just run the ball and not have to give the ball to Patrick Mahomes, he's going to take advantage of it. When I see this Raiders offense, I'm basically basing it off of how would you want to limit this team? Like, if they're playing at Bills or Kansas City, I think early game script is going to be run the ball as much as we human possibly can. But if they play a team that's, maybe the Carolina Panthers, someone of the sorts of not threatened by their offense, then you'll see them kind of explore other avenues to kind of find success.
You mentioned the Panthers, dude. We'll come back to them here in a little bit. It was very interesting for me to see where they were utilizing Brock Bowers. I mean, he lined up in line, he lined up in the slot, out wide, and then in the backfield. So that was very, very eye-opening. And if you consider kind of the weapons that they have, I mean, they have two wide receivers who can play like that alpha type role. I mean, Jacoby Myers continues to be slept on. This dude is a man that has all of the route tree available to him. He can play that alpha role. So when you put those two type wide receivers, Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, and now bring in a dynamic tight end like Brock Bowers, they have the ability to put some stress on an opposing defense. So it's going to be, I think, interesting for me, this offense this year. You mentioned Zamir White, and I know this is the wide receiver whisperer we're talking to here. But what do you expect from Zamir White real quick while we're talking about him?
Dude, as long as this dude's healthy, I think he's going to get a ton of carries. Whether that results in fantasy production, because I don't think he's going to be a pass catcher. I know he can catch passes, and that's fine. I know that he caught passes last year. Like, I think Dylan Laub can actually get the third down role in third and long situations, just as a pass catcher perspective, especially if they go 12 personnel with the Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers with the two receivers. Like, I think Laub makes a lot of sense in that formation, but he's not a super efficient running back. Like, I don't think in Travis Etienne year, just because he's getting a ton of touches is what he's in for. I'm trying to think of a good running back that he just always got ball. Like, imagine Joe Mixon before the Bengals offense was very good. When Joe Mixon was on the field, he was getting a lot of touches. He just wasn't super efficient. And everybody was he gives you production fantasy wise, but it's not pretty. It's not something you are like, oh wow, this is the guy. This is a McCaffrey. This is a Saquon level player. It's like, no, he's just giving you 10 to 16 points when he scores. That type of production.
And that's okay, right?
No,
that's useful.
yeah, it's useful in baseball. I think he's gone too late in my opinion. Like, I don't think Alexander Madison's good at all. And it's
Mhm.
like when he signed, I think his ADP dipped like behind the Jonathan Brooks of the world. And look, I love Jonathan Brooks for the late game, but Zamir White and Jonathan Brooks on your team makes a lot of sense because early on in the season, like Zamir White's just gonna get touches, and it's just how they're gonna operate as an offense.
I love it, man. Let's shift gears again. Let's go to one of their divisional opponents in the Chiefs. They brought in some speed this offseason. What do you expect to see from the Chiefs this year?
I am so sad for Hollywood Brown.
Dude.
I have so much Hollywood Brown, and I know injuries happen. That injury just come on. Like, what do we like? That's just very, very, very unfortunate. But
Snap, man.
as far as the Chiefs offense, I think there's the chance that this is the most, I would say, the best Patrick Mahomes in terms of efficiency and being able to kill you in any way that's needed. Like at the low end of the field, deep down the field, in the intermediate areas. Like Mahomes has the ability to do that. He hasn't had the weapon since Tyreek Hill left to actually accomplish a lot of that.
But MVS isn't a weapon, dude.
He dropped the pass in the first preseason game, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But as far as like looking at their offense, like they went out and tried to get the speed needed to like run a lot of the concepts Miami runs. Like Andy Reid had a very, 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 very easy mission of, hey, let's get as much speed as we possibly can now, and let's get people that we know are already there. Like Xavier Worthy played in an NFL scheme with Steve Sarkisian. Dude started as a true freshman at Texas and was their best player when he best receiver when he stepped foot on the field. Bijan being the best player. But then you have Hollywood Brown, who, if you look at the numbers, Hollywood Brown doesn't look great. That's just throughout his career, you're like, oh, he's never really had a lot of production, yada, yada.
Yeah.
If you actually dive into the quarterback play that he had, yes, he's had drops. Yes, drops. The Lions game always comes up every time I see Hollywood Brown's name on Twitter. I played him that week a long time ago when he dropped the 3 touchdowns. But when he's been healthy in recent years, he's developed into a better route runner. He still has the deep speed. It was Josh Dobbs just underthrowing him the entire beginning of the year that I was sitting there like, oh, this is tough. This is really tough for Hollywood. But now he plays with Mahomes. Now he has Xavier Worthy and Kelsey. And like, for me, I look at him and I'm like, if he were able to stay healthy, I think he could have had his best season as a pro. And with him out, Xavier Worthy is going to have to step up into that role. I don't know if Andy Reid's going to trust him. Obviously, Rashee Rice, we're waiting on the legal proceedings to kind of set where he's going to be. But if they actually were able to trot out Worthy, Rice, Brown, Kelsey with Mahomes and Pacheco, that offense line, like I think that's the best top to bottom weapons they've had since Tyreek Hill's been here.
And we kind of saw this last season with our expectation is like these offenses are just going to go and try and score as many points as they can. And we saw the exact opposite with the Chiefs last year, where they have the lockdown secondary, they have the ability to generate pressure up front, and they kind of just went into this like, hey, we're going to try and win games a little different. And look where it got them. Back to the Super Bowl, back to a back-to-back championship. Do you think that is going to change? Should we expect this offense to be leaning forward a little bit more? With the consideration, the understanding that they still have, a top 5 to 7 defense this year.
Well, without L'Jarius Sneed, they're going to have to score more points. Trent McDuffie can do so much, but there's a lot of duos in the NFL, and I'm not sure they have the second corner to lock down the way they did in the Super Bowl. Like, you watch the Super Bowl, Deebo and Brandon Ayuk, before their injuries, weren't getting open. After their injuries, obviously, they had zero chance. And then Juwan Jennings was the third guy. Like, teams needed that third guy when they played Kansas City. Now, I think your 2 can be the guy that you need. And like when they play like the Bengals to me are the biggest threat to the Chiefs. I don't think they have the firepower to defend them on the defensive side of the ball. And I think as long as the Bengals stay healthy, it's going to result in like they're the team that's not afraid of the Chiefs. Like they've had their number. I know that they beat them in the last AFC Championship game. That was a very, very, very close game. That was with Trent McDuffie playing out of his mind and L'Jarius Sneed being able to cover. Now they don't have that guy. And they also don't have Willie Gay, who's, I believe, one of their better pass rushers at the linebacker position, the speed that he has. I think was lost in free agency too. Like Spags is going to get the defense right. Don't get me wrong. When they play bad teams, they're going to crush them. But when they play a team like the Bengals, who are just not afraid of them, it could become more of a scoring fest. And on the defensive side of the ball with the Bengals, they don't have the speed to match up with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then as long as Kelsey's healthy, the Chiefs offense will have a lot more rhythm than they did last year.
Last thing with the Chiefs, we saw some offseason reports that Travis Kelce might be utilized less. As far as his snap rate goes, we've seen the rumblings of the rookies they brought in, and they lost their second and third tight end this offseason. Do you think that Kelce is going to be kind of babied at all during the regular season here?
From a snap share, yes. But from a production, like look at Tyreek Hill's numbers in Miami. Dude plays like 60% of the snaps, but Mike McDaniel's adapted the mentality of like, oh, when he's on the field, he's getting the ball. I don't care that you know that he's getting the ball. Stop it.
Yeah.
I dare you. Like, I expect Kelce to not have an 80% snap share, but it not affect his production because he's not going to get on the field when they're blocked. Like, he's like the snaps he's off the field is going to be Pacheco time. And teams might adapt to it. But again, you still got to stop it. And if you sell out of the run against Mahomes, he can still throw the ball without Kelce on the field. So, like, for me, I think Kelce's snap share is going to be in the 60%, but his production is still going to be the top tight end in the NFL. He's been my tight end one all season.
Yeah, for the last 7 seasons, right?
Yeah.
Big man, catch football, score a touchdown.
Exactly.
Draft it.
And he's the best red zone threat. He's the only red zone. Like Hollywood and Xavier Worthy are not going to take away from Kelce in the red zone, which makes it even better.
We saw them try and experiment a little bit with Rashee Rice last season. He's at least a guy that can separate within the first couple of yards of the line of scrimmage. So he might be an interesting red zone weapon here as well.
Yep.
Moving to one of the teams that has, I think, the firepower to give the Chiefs a little bit of a run for their money. You mentioned having that bona fide number 2. Let's talk about the Dolphins, man. And what I want to lead this off with is this team utilized 11 personnel at a top 5 rate in their first preseason game. And we know last year they were bottom 3 in 11 personnel usage rate. We saw kind of Jalen Waddle be the guy. If you look at their splits, the wide receiver splits, 11 and jumbo sets, Waddle really stepped up when they were playing from jumbo. Now, with this offense the way it is, bringing in Jonnu Smith, drafting a speedy wide receiver rookie, bringing in Odell Beckham Jr., do you think we're going to see a transition to a lot heavier 11 personnel usage here? So
the Dolphins, I feel like Mike McDaniel is approaching the season like, all right, what gives this team fits? How do I exploit this team in particular? And I could see them running 12 with Jonnu and Durham Smythe. I could see them running 22 with the 2 running back, like Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert on the field. Like, the personnel packaging that they have is the scariest it's been since Mike McDaniel's taken over.
Yes.
It shouldn't limit anything that Tyreek Hill does. Jalen Waddle, to me, is going to have an unbelievable season. But if they go more 11, I think methodically it'll help them down the field. They won't be as much of a splash play if they go 11, because the reason that their splash plays happen so much when they go 12 is because their run game is creating 60-yard touchdowns left and right. And as a result, you have to step up. And when you step up, Tyreek Hill goes in motion from a tight end to the freaking H-back to the wide receiver. Then he's in a full sprint, and you're just not covering it. So weekly, I think it's going to change. I think it's going to be like, all right, is your third corner good? Is your linebacker able to cover? Like, they're going to look at teams and be like, all right, how do we put ourselves in the best position to beat them? How do we create the mismatch that we wanted? During the Hard Knocks series last year, Mike McDaniel was watching a play over and over again, and it was a slant and go, like a sluggo. They call it against DJ Reed for the Jets, and they were like, all right, how did you get this? And he looked at the formation and different things. Miami came out in that exact formation and had Waddle on that side of the field run the sluggo, and Tua was throwing it no matter what kind of thing. Like you could tell that Tua was just launching, and he threw a dime, and Waddle killed DJ Reed on the route. And like that's the type of coach he is, where he's going to look at, okay, how did this team get beat? How can I help my team to beat them in that way? And then once they're off and running, like nobody can emulate the Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle speed, but for them in particular, the speed they have outside of that is terrifying.
It's insane, dude. And I think the industry was slow to react to the Jonnu signing. This is a guy who clocked the second fastest ball carrier speed of tight ends ever since ball carrier speeds have been tracked. I mean, which was like 2004, 2005. I can't remember when it started being tracked. On his 60-yard touchdown last year with the Atlanta Falcons. So like, this is a dude who you talk about linebackers and coverage. Stop that. Like, come on, man.
He might be their goal line running back. Like, he might get goal line. Like, it would not. There was drills during this all season where Johnny was like playing running back. Like, he was training in the way of like him having, the stance of a running back in the backfield and catching tosses. It would not surprise me if you look at like Devon Achane isn't a goal line guy. He can run in between the tackles, but he just really doesn't with Miami. It doesn't go well. He's a little too small for it.
Yeah.
Jalen Wright has a really good jump cut, but he is a rookie. Chris Brooks and Jeff Wilson, I think they're both fighting to be on the team. And it's like, Jonnu Smith is a freak. Like, it would not surprise me if this man is out here getting a tight end screen when they're on the goal line while he fakes it to Raheem Mostert. He does that weird pitch thing where he's just looking away and it's Jonnu Smith underneath just catching it and go. Like, I have so much Jonnu Smith late. I didn't understand where he was going. Like, he is the best tight end on that offense, and he's a weapon. Like Tennessee was giving him carries. Like, it would not surprise me to see Mike McDaniel give him a lot of work as a runner, as well as just the quick, easy outlet for Tua.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about last year where it was like, yo, this offense is so concentrated between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They are their mismatches, and then the backfield, right? We knew the backfield was going to eat. Now it's like, where are you going to, like, how are you going to cover all these pieces? You talk about like an offense like the Chiefs, where like they had a very clear defined mission this offseason. They executed that mission. It was like, yo, you can't just be worried about the backfield, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle anymore. Like, we're going to use the tight end position. We're going to have the depth at running back. We're going to invest in a wide receiver 3. They made some moves this offseason. It is going to be scary playing this team this year. All right, dude, we went around the league a little bit. Now, with you being the wide receiver whisperer, I want to hear a few names that you are above consensus. You mentioned Hollywood Brown, RIP. I want to hear some names that you are above consensus and some names that you are below, which is almost more important here. Above and below consensus wide receivers. Let's go, dude.
So for the above, I'll go bounce back and forth here a little bit, but Justin Jefferson, I'm above consensus. I know he's already ranked high. I think he's going to fall a little bit just because they saw an injury to the quarterback position. When DJ Moore played with Sam Darnold and Joe Brady back in 2021, when Sam Darnold started those first, I think, 3 to 4 weeks, before he got hurt, I believe, whatever it was, DJ Moore was on pace for 182 targets, 1,700 yards, and 16 touchdowns or 14 touchdowns. Granted, small sample, totally understand that it's, justifiably low. But if you've watched Kevin O'Connell call plays, as like his offense, his passing or route concepts, he finds ways to get Justin Jefferson the ball. Like, I'm not worried about Jay Jettas at all. He got paid early enough that he's not like missing the time and missing the connection. Like, he's gotten all the work with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was supposed to start the year, which I think the plan was to go to McCarthy in week 4 during the bye week. But now it's Sam Darnold. So now it's not like he's losing his quarterback at all. He's just probably going to have Sam Darnold for the full season. TJ Hawkinson, I don't expect to be a real threat early on in the season. And you look at their offense, and it's like, it's him. It's him and Jordan Addison. Like, those are the two guys that are going to get targets early on in the season. And maybe I trade Justin Jefferson after week 5, week 6 for a big package because Jay Jettas is dominating. But for me, I think he's going to have the type of year he's always been able to have. And last year, he was averaging over 100 yards per game anyways. Like, it would not surprise me.
He hit 1,000 in half of the season.
Yeah, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he just stays to where he's always been. Granted, that doesn't mean he's going to be the best receiver in football, because Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb and others are getting the workload that he was getting, but he's still going to be one of the top guys. Below consensus, I talked about the Raiders offense having a lot of pieces, and I was concerned with quarterback play. And that makes me concerned for Davante Adams. It has nothing to do with Adams as a player. He's still a top receiver in the NFL. If he ended up getting moved for whatever reason, I think he becomes the one on majority of offenses. Mm-hmm. But with the Raiders and the fact that I like Brock Bowers a lot, and that Zamir White is a guy that I think gets touches, like, it just makes Davante Adams going as like wide receiver 13 feel like I don't want to go that route over some of the guys. Like, I would rather take my chance on Chris Olave again, even though that one hurt this past season. And I talked how highly of Miami Dolphins offense. Like, I still love Jalen Waddle. Like, Waddle wasn't that much worse. Like, from a production standpoint, was worse than he was 2 years ago. But last year, he got targeted more when he was on the field. He had a better yards per route run. He just got hurt more. Like, that was the main reason for Waddle's demise in terms of production. And he's one of the guys that I've been over consensus pretty much the whole offseason. I think it's caught up. I've seen him go in that early second round in best ball drafts, which not over that in consensus, but for fantasy football, if he's going in late or early round 3 in your league, I would be taking him in the mid to late second. I think Waddle, again, even though Miami's gotten a lot off or people on their offense, Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are still the vocal points of this offense. Last year, they scored 36 rushing touchdowns or something crazy. Like, that can regress a little bit this year, and as a result, Waddle and Tyreek Hill are a little better for fantasy. But
yeah, for sure.
Go back to below Debo. I just don't buy it.
Ooh, spicy.
I know that Ayuk's getting traded. I think, to me, it bumps up Kittle a lot. I think Debo's where he prior to the news and everything, I think where he was getting drafted was reasonable. But
second, yeah.
I know what he does. I know he scores. I know he gets the big plays and different things. I think Ricky Pearsall's good. I think George Kittle gets a big uptick in work, and I would rather put my eggs in that basket later in taking some of the guys that are going around Deebo Samuel. I know that it's going to be tough to justify when Brandon Ayuk inevitably gets dealt to the Steelers, but for me, it's like I don't think he gets the work that we expect. I think his work stays, and that is still a good receiver. I just don't think it's going to be an uptick in touches. He's one of the guys that I like Ricky Pearsall a lot. I'm all in on that camp. So I don't know how you feel about Pearsall, Hilow.
Below consensus. I don't have very much.
Perfect. Love that. Love that.
Love that for you.
That's funny. No, that's fair. I mean, I was in on Pearsall.
That's fair. Nice. We got it. That's fair. Market timestamp.
Hey, that's fair. Brock Purdy. So the thing is, I also, prior to this, I thought Shanahan was going to go more 11, which is not what he normally does, but because I thought, like, how do you not get Pearsall on the field but now makes more sense. It's like, oh, they're still going to go 21 and 12 because they're just going to put Deebo and Ricky Pearsall. But also Deebo's going to get more number one coverage this year because nobody's going to throw their number one corner on Pearsall. Not that a lot of teams run man, but I think there's a lot of teams in that division that have a clear-cut best corner, and that best corner is going to cover Deebo Samuel, which, again, still doesn't matter because it's Shanahan offense. But
yeah.
I didn't have many other guys that I'm below consensus just because of the fact that once you're getting around like rounds 4, 5, 6, it's like they're all normal. Like, I don't think it's like a reach to take I don't think Christian Kirk's a guy that I would take in where he's going, but it's like it's not going to be a significant loss in production versus some of the other guys in their range. So just to give you some guys that I have above consensus, DK Metcalf. I love Grubbs. I am all in on Seattle this upcoming year offensively. I think that what Grubbs does is he's going to isolate DK Metcalf just like he did with Rome Odunze a lot. And with that, it's going to allow, and also have the trust in Geno, like, hey, if you see one-on-one with DK, throw him the ball. Like, I don't care. Like, throw him the ball. And when you watch their offense in the preseason game, it was a lot of simple completions, which is exactly what Washington does. And then once you come up, that's when they exploit you deep. And JSN is going to be a guy that also with Seattle comes with the idea of like them being really good, allows him to be good as well. Tyler Lockett's still going to be a guy. He's always going to be. I know he's consistently finished with better production than it feels like everybody. But to me, I think this is a chance for DK to have the best year of his entire career. He's not developed into this top tier receiver, but for me, going wide receiver 19, like I think DK Metcalf finishes like wide receiver 10 this year, wide receiver 13. I think that he has one of the years where you watch the production, you're like, oh wow, like AJ Brown impact to Philly, where it's like, oh wow, AJ Brown is really just the top tier receiver in the NFL, and we finally see it week in, week out because he's getting targeted. Yeah. Seattle, I think that's going to be the case with Grubbs coming over and being able to coach him. Chris Godwin's a guy I've been in all season, Mr. Slot role now. He finally goes back inside, and he was better than Christian Kirk in the slot last year. He just played out wide with Dave Canales, which upsets me. Now, Chris Godwin moving back inside, like, I think there's a chance that he finishes higher in PPR formats than Mike Evans.
Yeah.
Don't think he will in a half point because Mike Evans will get him on the touchdowns. But Chris Godwin's going to get a ton of targets. And speaking of a ton of targets, Deontay Johnson. He's clearly the best receiver on the Panthers. And Dave Canales has openly come out and said, like, yeah, we're going to find as many ways as we can to get him the ball. Deontay's risen in the last 2 months, but for me, I still think it's too low. Like, he's going to get 140 to 150 targets again, which is something you just are looking for in those late rounds.
Yeah, 100%. There was a lot you covered there. We'll love the DK Metcalf shout. And this is a guy who we're getting a slight discount based on where he's gone over the last 3 years even. He's been in the second round wide receiver for the last 3 seasons. So getting him in the third round right now, love that shout. Back to the Brandon Ayuk thing real quick, dude. Yeah. This is a significant I don't know, happenings. We've had 2 weeks, and by the time we're recording this on Wednesday, it's going to be released on Friday. So we might get some news on Brandon Ayuk's decision before when this comes out. But this is a significant offseason happening right now. What Brandon Ayuk gives to this offense, he is the reason. I mean, he can block, he can do all those things, he can do the nitty gritty, but he is what Shanahan uses in this offense to extend the field in the vertical. When you lose that, is that now going to be Pearsall? Like, who do they have on the 49ers? And we, like, without getting into the entire situation, like we know that the 49ers made a borderline disrespectful offer to Ayuk. He requested the trade. They negotiated a trade with New England's and with the Patriots. And then Ayuk says, no, thanks. And that was like at $32 million a year for 4 years. So that was a pretty hefty contract. Then we get reports that the Steelers have offered him a contract that is in the 30s range, something that he wants. We know that he kind of wants to go play for Tomlin, the bona fide players coach that they have in Pittsburgh. And then we get reports that the 49ers have upped their offer. So we also, like, last night, Tuesday night, way late at night, we had Jerry Rice, former 49ers legend, on his Instagram come out and say, hey, looking forward to the Brandon Ayuk decision tomorrow. So we might see a massive shakeup. All of that to say, like, there's a wide range of outcomes here. It's going to affect how Shanahan is able to employ his offense, and it could affect, obviously, how the Steelers are able to employ their offense. Back to the 49ers, though, real quick, dude. Is Pearsall a guy that can be this, like, vertical extender type player? Is he a guy that we can kind of slot into that role if Ayuk goes bye-bye?
He can play Ayuk's role. Does he produce Ayuk numbers? No. They're not replacing him. There is zero chance that the 49ers are able to replace Brandon Ayuk. However, they can adapt without him and be a top 5 offense. And again, that's why I have Kittle being a guy that, like, wasn't drafted with the top guys and all the fun young prospects at tight end. But if Ayuk is dealt, like, it would not surprise me if Kittle becomes the top 3 tight end that we know he can be. Like George Kittle, 3 years ago had like 1,400 yards?
Yeah.
Maybe 5 years ago. It was a while ago. But then he became this just all-world blocker, and they had other players that could do great stuff, and they're like, all right, we don't need you as much. Like, to me, Pearsall replaces the role that Ayuk played, but not at the level that Ayuk played it. Like, I think Pearsall, for me, a rookie season, if Ayuk is traded, I expect Pearsall to have like 800 to 900 yards as a rookie, which is a lot. It's a lot of yards for a player for the 49ers offense as in general, but it's someone that I watched up close at the Senior Bowl. I see the way that he can separate. I see the way that he has an understanding of the game that's a little different. He has the ability to make the highlight plays. If anybody needs to go see how good Ricky Pearsall is, go look up his catch against USF. That's one of the greatest catches I've seen in college football that not many people talk about. He had a one-handed snag like over the top where the safety hit him head first into his chest. And he just held on to the ball like, oh, it's nothing. Got up, pointed, first down. I know that hurt. I know for a fact that did not feel good at all for him, but he made it look easy. Again, I said that he was going to be my Puka of the class if he went late. He obviously went in the first round. Expectations are much higher. I don't think he's in the doghouse like Brandon Ayuk was early on. I think he's practicing hard, and he's been able to get some nice things out of Shanahan. So I think Ayuk or Pearsall will play the role. He just won't play it as Ayuk did.
I dig that shout, dude. You also mentioned Chris Godwin. Love that shout. Being over consensus on Godwin. And then you mentioned your Panthers faithful in Deontay Johnson. I love that shout too. I think it has been said, but I think it's kind of had this undertone of like, we'll kind of see the effect that Dave Canales moving to Carolina is going to have. Obviously, we had some historic struggles at the quarterback position last season. I think those will be at least put on the right path. We'll put it. I'm not going to say like we're going to see. I'm not going to say we're going to see Young just become this elite guy, but they did do some stuff to at least put him on the right path, right? They brought in some weapons to help him out. They went and they drafted a running back who has all of the build, the athleticism, the stature to be kind of a 3-down workhorse type back. We saw what Dave Canales did last season with Rachaad White in Tampa Bay. I'm absolutely giddy about Deontay. I'm absolutely giddy about Jonathan Brooks. Dude, I have to like say his name like that because I wrote him up for like 2 months this offseason as Jonathan with an A and is Jonathan Brooks. So that bit me. But yeah, this is a situation where I think, one, we should expect the offense to be more efficient under Dave Canales, and two, extremely concentrated, especially once Brooks is entered like full steam ahead in this offense.
This guy's the most honest coach I've ever seen in my entire life. It scares me. It scares me. So, like, they asked him about Xavier again. He's like, yeah, we're going to see him on screens, deep overs, go routes. We're just going to kind of try to get him the ball quickly or down the field. And I'm like, what? Like, why'd you openly, like, you could have said some generic answer that every other coach does. And he's like, no, we got an idea. And then they're like, yeah, Deontay Johnson, he's our X. He's going to get the ball as much as we can.
Yeah, we're building the offense around him.
Yeah, we're definitely. And for me, we got the 2 guards that are tremendous. We need Icky and Taylor Moton to play like they did 2 years ago because I don't know what happened to them last year, but they were awful last year. So I'm hoping they are better. And if the offensive line is average, not great, just average, I expect Bryce Young to have a significantly better year than what people put on him. Yeah. I still think the dude had, like you saw against your Green Bay Packers, has the ability to make great plays. It's just been the talent around him is clearly just not, it's not great, and he's not able to make it happen without the talent. And as long as the interior pressure is fixed, I think Bryce Young has a year where it like opens eyes like, oh, okay, I see it. I see why they drafted him number 1 overall. it's going to suck because CJ Stroud's going to be like, yeah, I got my third receiver is better than your best receiver.
Yeah.
And my offense is better too.
Tank Dell, dude. Draft Tank Dell, man. Shit.
God, I'm so mad about that.
As long as they're not throwing over the middle of the field because Bryce Young can't see over the line. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
Hey, you can see over Damian Lewis. He got Damian Lewis. He doesn't have Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt's a little bigger than him.
Yeah. All right, dude. We've been crushing it. I appreciate you coming on. We're going to end today with some sleeper rookies. I mean, you mentioned that Pearsall was on your radar as being coined potentially this year's Puka, and then he goes in the first round and destroys your world. Talk to me about some guys that are positioned well to make a year one impact.
So we'll talk about guys that I had pre-draft that I thought were going to be good players this upcoming year. Jalen McMillan being one of them. I don't expect him to be great early. And the reason for that is going to be because of the fact that he's an inside guy and he's playing outside right now and he's going to get it done outside. But if Godwin misses any stretch of time, he's going to be a high riser for me just because I think he's a slot guy that is eventually the Chris Godwin replacement. And when you watch him at Washington, like when him and Rome Odunze were on the field, they got the same targets. Rome Odunze is better than him. Rome Odunze is more explosive than him. Jalen McMillan was more of like the guy that could give you the first down against, some soft coverage, find the hole in the zone. Like he's a very technical route runner. So McMillan to me is a sleeper in terms of like what everybody's talking about. And the fact that he was on the field early and playing outside, it's like, okay, they want him on the field.
Yeah.
It's just Chris Godwin right now is the guy inside. And then the other guy pre-draft that I had was Malik Washington. I don't expect him to be the wide receiver 3 in this offense. I think that's reserved for Odell, Craycraft, or Berrios, whoever ends up being the trusted guy in the possession type role. But if Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill come off the field, I expect Malik Washington to go on. I think Malik Washington gets used motion-wise the way that Tyreek and Waddle get used. And I think his speed and ability to run routes is good enough that he's going to make the splash plays. Don't think he's going to be great. I think that he's going to have like a year where like, wow, this guy averaged like 18 yards of reception. It's like, oh, because teams didn't respect him when he came on the field. And then all of a sudden he's doing the same things that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are doing. It's not as good, but he's wide open. So it makes it makes everything a lot easier. I don't know how you feel about either of these guys. So do you like Jalen McMillan and Malik Washington, or you haven't?
I do. And I think they landed, well, more so for Malik Washington, kind of landed in the spot best suited for his skill set as a potential like mismatch type player. Jalen McMillan is a guy that like you nailed it. Like his college production, I mean, he was running lockstep with Rome Odunze. So this is a guy that can be relied upon. It might not be a year one type breakout situation, as you alluded to. But this is a guy like in dynasty leagues, like, I was targeting fairly heavily. Any other parting shots, wide receiver, man? We kind of took a trip. We were very AFC heavy in our trip around the league, but it just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah, AFC is boring. Right. I mean, my parting shots are the 2 preseason guys that stood out. Devon Vele, Utah guy, big-bodied receiver. Sean Payton, for some reason, is just all about it. Marvin Mims plays the first snap, doesn't play till Bo Nix comes in. Makes total sense. Devon Vele is a guy that like deeper league you can obviously take a shot on. And then I don't know how Sean McVay does it. I really just don't get how he's able to do this.
Whittington.
Jordan Whittington is a guy that like when he came in as Texas, like him and Worthy, like it was supposed to be those two. And then Worthy was just significantly better. And it was like, okay. And then AD Mitchell got there and like they're both significantly better. And he looked great. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like Sean, like they're gonna run 11. DeMarcus Robinson should be the 3rd, but it wouldn't surprise me if this guy is because he's explosive. And then if Puka misses any time, then he's on the field. Like, and then all of a sudden we're sitting here and they're like, huh. Like, for what it's worth, Matt Stafford made Kenny Golladay a top paid receiver in the NFL. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Jordan Whittington ended up being just really good. Like, it just would not. Like, McVay and Stafford are just like, yeah, we can turn anything into great.
Yeah.
And then when Robert Woods gets cut, he's going to end up on this team again. And just know it's just going to be that gigantic headache of like, who's really the wide receiver 3? And eventually it'll just be Jordan Whittington, Puka, and Cooper Kupp. And all 3 of them are just going to get like 6 to 8 targets. Like all of them. Nobody's going to be the dominant player unless someone gets hurt. And we're going to be very, very confused with that.
All I need to know is if Jordan Whittington is eating breakfast with Matthew Stafford.
If they're imagine they just taking pictures every single week. It's just like every receiver. Like they just take imagine they just take a different receiver and they just like Stafford puts his arm around him, then he goes for 150. And then the next week it's Jordan Whittington. Then we just all every single week DFS are like, yeah, he took a picture with him. That's our analysis. That's
always
that's what it is.
Always one Rams wide receiver. Could be any of them. I love that shout, dude. Jordan, as always, dude, appreciate you coming on, man. This was cool to catch up. Again, if you were not following Jordan, you're doing it wrong. Go check out his X or Twitter or whatever the hell you want to call it, Jordan Vanek DFS. Check out his work in the college football streets at Roto Grinders. And what was the last one, dude, that you got going on this week or this season?
The NFL or gridiron ratings for my NFL DFS content. You can I'll start posting closer to the season. I go on a cruise this weekend, and when I get back, it'll be full go for content.
Let's go, dude. As always, man, great pleasure. Thanks for coming on. We'll see you all at the top of the leaderboards. Peace.